All right. Well, welcome everyone. Sorry we're having some technical difficulties. My name is Angela Fullwood, and I am the supervisor for Title I Parent and Family Engagement. Welcome, and I thank you all for being here. Today I'm so excited about our presentation. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give you a little bit of direction. At the end of the presentation, our speaker is going to be able to answer any questions that you may have right there in the chat room. You'll see it over on the right-hand side. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, go ahead and write the questions in the box, and I will be able to, we will be able to ask Ms. Rogers all the questions that you have. And then there are going to be some links for you in the recorded version. We'll give you some direction on how to get to the recorded version on the YouTube page and see all the links that and directions that she's going to have available that she's going to cover throughout this presentation. We're so excited to have Michelle Rogers. Michelle Rogers has been a project manager for myON in Hillsborough County for the past 2.5 years. And what her primary role is she helps to support and monitor and enable the community-wide implementation of Hillsborough's myON program here in our district. She does live in Tampa with her children, and her children are also products of Hillsborough County Schools. So she put her precious babies in our hands. And so with that, without further ado, I'm going to introduce to you and turn it over to Miss Michelle Rogers. Welcome, Michelle.
So much, Angela, for that warm welcome. And I'm delighted to be spending the next hour with you all and sharing all the wonderful things that myON can do. I had offered to do this because I know I work very closely with parents and media specialists and reading coaches, but I thought parents are just as important, especially in this time that we find ourselves in, and helping your children navigate through this. So we figured, what a better way to make sure that you feel comfortable with some of the myON basics. So first of all, I want to make sure, can everybody see my screen? You can just put it in the chat, yes or no. Okay, and let me turn up the volume just a little bit, so you can hear me better. And hopefully you can see my screen now. All right.
Yes, Michelle, I think they all can see your screen.
Awesome, wonderful. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to log in as a sample student so that you can see exactly how students log in, and we'll just do some basic navigation through the myON dashboard and the myON interface. And like Angela said, she's going to be manning the chat box, and we'll address any questions that you have and come back to anything that you may want to review. So I'm going to log in as my sample student, but if you've never had your child log in, the way that they would log in is they would go to myon.com, and they can just simply search for their school name by typing in the first few letters. Like if, for example, it is Alafaya Elementary, I type in Alafaya and the name automatically comes up, and I would select that name. The username for the student is going to be their lunch number or their student ID number. And then their password will be their district password. So it's super easy for them to log in. If you're not sure what that district password is, the media specialist at the school or their homeroom teacher would have that information as well. But since I'm logging in into my imaginary school, Rogers Elementary, I'm going to log in as a sample student and talk a little bit about what a student would see. So the very first thing, oh, hold on just a second, maybe I tried that too quickly and it didn't like it. Let me exit out of this real quick and refresh my page. Bear with me, technology is not always our friend. Oh, the fourth time's a charm. Let me try a different student. Oh, let me call up myON again. Start from scratch.
So that's okay. This is what we want parents to see, that even the best of us have difficulties. So we in all of our webinars, we want parents, you all, to know, don't strive for perfection. We just want you to strive for progress. And so while you're supporting your schools, look, we're all having technical difficulties. Believe you me, our children probably know how to log into this much better than us. But
Absolutely.
so just know that all of us, none of us are perfect. So don't get frustrated. Just keep going through. There you go. There you're in.
Now we're on. Absolutely. So, if your child has been working on myON already, this is what their dashboard will look like eventually. Will look like when they're logging in and they can see their reader meter and the last book read and their projects. However, if you're logging in for the very first time, this is not what you're going to see. What you're going to see is a screen that looks just like this. It's called the interest inventory because myON wants to know certain things about your child before it can recommend books for them, so that this becomes almost like a customized digital library. Think of it as Netflix of books for kids. So we already know in the system whether they're in kindergarten, whether in their fourth grade, whether they're in seventh grade. So myON already has their grade level. The next thing myON wants to know is, hey, what kind of books do you like to read about? So it has a series of categories where the student, and if they're younger students, you are certainly, as a parent, can help them talk through the different topics. And through the smiley faces, they can identify how much they like to read those books. They can also identify what language they want those books to appear in their collection. Because we've got about 10 to 15% of our collection that are Spanish books. So then I'm going to click on Save. And the very next thing that will appear for your child that we're not seeing right now, but they're going to see an initial placement exam. And so myON's going to want to know not only what their interest level is, but also what is the student's independent reading level. So this way, once we capture that information by giving them an initial placement test, they can make recommendations for their book. So it's going to start off very simple. It's going to start off at their grade level, and it will adapt and it will adjust. So as your student gets the questions correct, it's going to get a little harder and a little harder until they start missing questions. If they miss questions, they'll get a little easier. We just want to find their just right level, and this could take as few as 5 minutes for your students to complete. For some of them, if they're getting really good at it, it could take 20 to 25 minutes, and that's okay. You want to encourage your child to try their best, but you want them to make sure that they're doing this completely by themselves. Because we're not trying to capture their listening comprehension. We want to know their reading comprehension. So once that's all said and done, the test will close out and their screen will look just like this. And now they can begin exploring books in their library. myON's going to make different recommendations for them. So let's talk a little bit about what you're seeing here. You can do a quick search by typing any title or a topic in the top left-hand corner of the screen. The last book that I've read always appears on the left-hand side, so I can get to it easily. I also have a reader meter that tracks for me how many minutes I've been reading and how many books I've read, either for the week or for the month. And then below I have projects, and we'll talk a little bit more about projects that maybe some of my teachers have assigned to me. And then I will also have some book recommendations that are attached just to my dashboard, depending on what I've completed reading. But when I want to go to my library and do some exploring, there's different ways that I can access books. So I'm going to click on the library button. And the first place that I want to go looking for books is under this recommended button, because this is where myON is going to place all my top picks based on my level, my interests, and my grade. So here are some top picks for me. Right now, I'm logged in as a sample third grader. So you can kind of see the different books that myON thinks I may like to read, and I can just scroll through the different arrows and I can look at the different book jackets. It's also recommending new books that may be here, books that are popular in my grade according to all the myON readers across the country. And then it's going to give me some different recommendations based on things that I've told myON or things that myON's picking up on that I'm liking to read. It even has a drop-down selection so that I can change and toggle. Let's say I don't find any books today that I'm interested in under recommended, but I really like pets. And it will upload pet books for me that I can choose from as well. So this is a quick and easy way to find some just right books for you. Another way of browsing the collection is by clicking on the browse button, and it will break it down by the 10 categories that we chose. And you can see that we've got over 7,000 books to choose from. But when I click on a category, it will even give me subcategories. So if I'm really into dinosaurs, I can go to dinosaur books and access dinosaur books this way. And again, it will float the ones that are most appropriate for my reading level, my age, and my interests up to the top. A third way of searching for books is just by clicking on search and typing a particular topic. So let's say, for example, I'm really into basketball. And I can search for basketball books. There's 68 books that have to do with basketball here. So that may be a little overwhelming for a student to find the one that's just right for them. I can either filter by clicking on the little filter icon, and I can tell myON I want nonfiction books. I want to read real books about basketball, and I'm going to go to my grade level. So I'm in third grade. And I can even add a third filter. I can look at story type. I can identify what length of book. And I want to make sure that it has audio support built in. So now when I click my magnifying glass again, it's narrowed that search down for me to 25 books. And now there's lots of them that I can choose from here that all have to do with basketball. So let's say I've done this search and now I find I'm excited and I think to myself, wow, there's at least 5 of these books that I want to read, but I can't read them all in one sitting. I have a way of adding them. If I hover over any of my books, I can add them to my list up at the top. And it's kind of like creating your own list of favorites. So I'm going to click on Fantasy Basketball Math and Wacky Basketball Trivia and Top Basketball Tips. Those are the ones that I'm going to say, ooh, and this one, Basketball's Record Breakers. So let's say those are the 4 that I want to read. Now I've saved them so I don't have to go back and start that search all over again. And I can clear this search and I can search as many different books as I want, again, in the collection, which is great. And so we've got different categories. You can also clear the filters. And if you wanted to search by language, and take a look to see how many books maybe we have in Spanish or that are bilingual. I can search those books as well and see what comes up. We've got 490 books that fit that criteria. And then I can scroll down to see which ones may interest me or your child. So lots of different ways of working through the different filters. You can also search by title. So if I click on title or a series or an author or a publisher. So I encourage you to go through and play around with these filters and see what you can come up with in searching for the library. Lots of great stuff for us to access. I'm going to open up one of the books just so that you can see, or hover over one of the books so that you can see what's here. So every single book has 3 buttons. We already talked about the add button. The green button obviously allows us to read the book, and the blue button gives us information about it. So when I click on it, it gives me a description of the book. It tells me what the recommended grade level is, who the publisher is, the book series. Also, if it has audio built in, it will tell me how long this audio book will last and what languages that book is written in. I can also access additional details about that book. And from here, I can also launch it to read it or add it to my list. So that's what's included in that blue info button that's very relevant for every book. So let's just click on read so that you can see what the myON Reader is all about. This is what the book looks like, and it will give you the option to start the book. Now, if you have already started a book and then you're coming back to it because maybe you didn't finish it in the first sitting, you will have a second button that will allow you to continue reading the book where you left off. So you don't always have to start from the beginning. So I'm going to click this book, start the book. And notice that I've got different buttons across the bottom of the page as well as over on the right-hand side. So if I click on the arrow, it's going to give me my audio. And the great thing about all of the myON books is they've been recorded by professional Broadway actors and actresses. So they're very interactive, very engaging. There's a lot of intonation and great modeling of fluency, and they're just really fun and engaging for the students. So in order to flip the pages, I just turn and use my arrows and I can go back and forth. The student does have to click on the arrow in order for the page to flip. Then you also have an arrow, an ability to control the sound volume of the book. And the next button allows you to rewind the book as well. So if you want to reread a page, that will take you there. The next button down below lets you see all of the different pages. So if you're rereading and you're trying to find your favorite page, you can get to that particular page. Or in some cases, if you have an older child who is using a myON book for research, they may be trying to get to chapter 3 and not necessarily read all of the pages leading up to chapter 3. They can use this paginator. It's a very fancy word, but it allows us to get to that particular page. So then over on the right-hand side, we have the great built-in dictionary inside of the book. So I can click on any word in the text. So maybe I don't know what this word is over here, and I can click on it, and it will allow me to view it in the dictionary. It will read it from here, read the book, read the word. So if I click on View in Dictionary, the dictionary will open up on the right-hand side, and I will be able to read a definition and also hear the word in isolation. So that is one great feature for beginning readers, English language learners, and just a way to build vocabulary with your student is encouraging them to click on that dictionary and join them when you're reading along with them. Another thing that you can notice is that you've got tools available, and the tools let you interact with that text. So we've got a paintbrush, we've got a highlighter, we've got sticky notes, and you're able to draw a square around text or a circle. So I'll model, for example, if I'm learning new words, I can pick a color, my highlighter, and I'll pick green, and I can highlight the brand new words that I'm learning. Or maybe I'm learning color words and they're all going to be, anything that has to do with blue, we're going to highlight in a text. So that we can do as well. I can also draw an arrow to the word hat and draw the arrow to it as well to make text to images connections and beginning to build those relations for the students with the text itself as well. Anything that they annotate stays there until they erase it. So I can use my little eraser and come back and erase anything that I've done, or I can click on the garbage can and click through as well to remove the images. So this is just another great way of being able to interact with the book. Now, when I get to the very end of the book, I have to have spent a certain amount of minutes on reading the book because we want to make sure that children are not just flipping through the pages just for the sake of flipping through the pages. But once they get to the end, they're going to see a review and they get to rate the book 1 to 5 stars. And also they will see a comprehension quiz that allows them and allows the teacher to see how well did they understand the story or the book that they've read. So that's basically the myON reader where we're at. So, and I'm going to stop right there before I move on to the next section. Angela, do we have any good questions in the chat that we can answer?
So we don't have any questions right now, but I just want to remind everyone, all the participants, if you have any questions, go ahead and type it in the chat box. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, so let me exit out of the book. And basically all of the books function in the exact same way. It just depends on the complexity of text that your student, depends on their reading level and their interest of what they're going to see. But I just picked something that's relatively simple and a bilingual book to illustrate for you today. So when I click on exit, it takes me back to the library. And if I click on the myON icon, I can get back to my home page. And then the next thing I want to show you that is new to our district, and we have it for a trial period for the next 3 months that is super exciting, is this button here called News. And News is a little bit different than the library. This is a digital newspaper that is specially written for children. We have a daily newspaper, and they are 5 different articles that are written at 3 different reading levels. So think of it as kind of like a low, medium, and high, depending on the level of your where your student is in myON. They will get that corresponding article that fits their reading level the best. So I'm going to open up this to be able to view an article. I just click on it. I'm going to click on this, the superpower of reading, so you can kind of take a look at what this looks like. By the way, every single one of these articles is vetted by a child psychologist to ensure that the content that we're putting out there is appropriate for them, um, and relatable as well. So as you can see, this is what the article looks like over on the left-hand side. And all of the navigation buttons for the article are placed on the right. So the very first button provides audio support for that article, just like our books do. And then you also have the ability to translate the article into different languages. And I have the ability to adjust the font size for that article. And then I also have included here some what we called scaffolds, or things that help build background information and knowledge for the student. So the first one is a map. So that way your child knows, where is this article taking place? And there's a little hello button with a little blurb, audio blurb about the map, and also a tip that comes in on an airplane, which is super fun for every single map. And then every article also has an accompanying video to support it and some pictures. Typically, it's 4 pictures that go along with it. And then the next 2 buttons include a factoid and something to think about, an act that you may want to consider. And then the last 2 buttons have to do with the author and citations. Where did this information come from? When you scroll to the bottom of the article, you're able to see other books in case you're interested in reading more. myON goes ahead and matches these articles to books that already exist in the core collection. And then there are 3 questions, comprehension questions, to see how well your child understood that article. So again, something a little bit different to read about. They can go back to today's edition by clicking the today's edition button, or you can look through all the articles and archives. And let's say, for example, again, we're into basketball. Let's see if we've got basketball articles. We have 144 articles that have to do with basketball. So that may be a fun way of accessing more current events other than the books that we've got. So lots of different options to navigate through myON News. And like I mentioned, 5 new articles get published every single day here. All right. The next thing I want to talk to you about, which you may see as a parent, is that students are getting subject.
Michelle, before you move on,
yes.
Can I ask this question? There's been several questions, and since we're on this topic, Luz Vargas asks, how do I find books by reading level? She came in a little late, and she didn't know if you had already covered that.
Great question. So if I want to look for books by reading level, and what you're going to want to look at is your student's Lexile level that will be right here in the front. It will say myON Lexile. It's the closest thing to their independent reading level according to that initial placement test. So if I want to search for books closest to that level, I'm going to go to the library, and then I'm going to go to search. And in this little filter icon, one of my choices is Lexile. So when I click on Lexile, since it's going to hover between 200 and 300, I may choose 200 and see what kinds of books come up, or I could do 300 because I'm right in between That's my sweet spot, is between the 200 and 300 range. So I could look for both. So that is a terrific question. So that's one way of filtering for books. So if I click on the magnifying glass, let's say I leave it at 300 and I click on the magnifying glass, 661 books come up that are at that just right level for me. And I may just want to scroll through and see what looks interesting for me to read. And then I may add a grade level and say, okay, well, I'm at second grade at that level. And I'll click the magnifying glass, and now it's going to narrow down for 475. And then I can add another topic in the search bar. So you have a lot of flexibility to play around with how you filter for books. Great question. Angela, did we have any other questions about filtering and searching?
There was a question from Theodore, and he asked, can a student set their own reading level or re-perform the reading initial evaluation?
Oh, great question. I'm so glad you asked that, Theodore. So what's going to happen is if they take that initial placement test, and that's just kind of think of it as our baseline. Then what happens once they've read in about 14 days, once they've been in 14 days, once they've read 5 books or they've read for 3 hours, they're going to get a little purple envelope up in this top top left-hand corner next to where it says myON. And I tell the kids it's like they've gotten myON mail. And so what that is, it's a much shorter benchmark assessment that allows us to measure reading growth to see, hey, have you improved because you've been doing so much reading? Did your Lexile go up? Did it stay the same? Did it drop down a little bit? Because that way we've got different points of being able to measure that. So that's an excellent point. And as you're working with your child, and if you see that little purple envelope in the top left-hand corner, encourage them to click on it and have them complete it independently. That will take them probably on average, I would say 5 minutes to complete, to just read it on their own, and then it will update their Lexile level. They also get to choose and unlock new avatars if they want to change their little avatar up on the top right for their profile. So it makes it kind of as a fun incentive for them. So very good question. Any other questions right now, Angela, that we've got that we can?
No, not at this time. So you can go ahead with move forward with the presentation.
Okay, terrific. All right, so as I was saying, something that you may see that I know teachers and media specialists and reading coaches are really beginning to utilize in myON is this projects section, which you see up at the top. They have a button that says projects, and you also have access to the projects below their reader meter. So I'm just going to click on projects up at the top. And what a project can consist of, basically a teacher can put together a set of books, or maybe just one book, maybe some type of writing that they want your child to complete, a graphic organizer. They may put a myON news article in there, but that way it could be an entire thematic unit that they're working on. So here, for example, you can see 2 projects that have been assigned to this student, and they're color-coded for a reason. So the one that's called Inventors and Inventions is brand new. It hasn't been worked on, so that's why it's in hot pink. And then our gold project, the 3rd grade extended learning project, we've done some work in. And you can also see the color coding down in the little tasks. So these little icons kind of represent what are the assignments in this project. When I click on it, that I'll be able to see, and I can look at a glance, not only as a student, but as a parent, you can kind of see, okay, the ones that are in green are finished, If they are in gold, we're working on them, and if they haven't been started yet, they'll still be in hot pink. So I'm going to click through the third grade extended project to show you what this looks like. Their tasks will be labeled over on the left-hand side in the order that the teacher would like for those tasks to be completed. So all you have to do is click on the task, and it will have the directions included, or the project objective will be listed up on the top left-hand corner. So here is, while you read, make sure you jot down key ideas of this hero who made a difference, and more examples you include in your journal, the better. So here are selections, and you can tell the books that have been read because they're framed out in green. So here you can see that Dwayne Johnson's in green. And then we've got another one that's in progress over in gold. So we've been working on some different books as well to choose from. And then this teacher also assigned a news article. So this news article, if I click on it, it's already framed out in green. I've read it. But I just click on the article and it'll take me straight to the article that my teacher assigned. And then if I want to go back to my project, I just click on back to project and it'll take me straight there. And I can move to my next task. And again, they don't have to do it all in one sitting. It will auto save their work so they can be working on it, especially younger children may need a little bit more time. If they've read a book, take a break, come back and do the writing. That's perfectly okay to do. And so they may have a graphic organizer that's assigned to them. And you would see two different buttons, one to complete it and one to turn it in. So I'm going to click on my graphic organizer complete button. And here are the directions that my teacher gave me. And here would be the knowledge map. So typically this would be totally empty, and then you're able to type and you can edit the notes from your text or whatever information you gathered from the book that you read. When I click on save, it takes me back to my graphic organizer page, and now I can turn it in, and that gets submitted to my teacher so she's able to see it from her login. And then I also have the ability to do some writing. So if I click on writing, it looks similar. Here's my turn in writing, and here's my continue writing task. The very first tab will give me my directions from my teacher, and then I can have my essay writer where I can type the information that I need. And for some children, it's easier to handwrite it first and then do the typewriting. It's completely up to you as a parent how you want to set that up at home. And then the teacher can also offer feedback. So if you see these little purple notes on the edge, that would be feedback from the teacher on the writing. So it's very interactive, and there's a lot that we are trying to utilize myON with. So my goal is to at least walk you through potentially what could you see on your child's dashboard when you log into myON. The last thing I want to show you, and I'm going to go back home. Anytime you want to go back to the dashboard, you can click on the myON icon. Is I want to show you how you can monitor your students' activity and make this and have this as a conversation with your child. But if you click on their name on the top right-hand corner of the screen, you're going to get a little drop down, and you can see not only their Lexile progression of how they've done and when they've done their reading and when they've taken Lexile exams across their time with myON, but you can update their interests at any point because these change, and it's totally okay to update your interests. The activity lets you see what types of books you've read. When was the last time you read them? Did you get all the way to the end? Did you take the quiz? And if you did, what was your score on the quiz? And then maybe what did you rate the book as well? So it gives you and across the top, you kind of see a snapshot from the beginning of the school year of how much work you've done. You also have the ability to choose your avatar, which is super fun. Lots of avatars to choose from here, and children love to change these out as often as possible. And then last but not least is a profile report. So this gives you a quick snapshot when I click on it to see how many books, how many reading minutes they've read since the first day of school, how many books, how many words, when does your child do the majority of their reading? Is it after school? Is it during school hours? Then you'll see the last 6 books read. It will also give you a breakdown of what types of books they're reading, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. And then also it gives you a quiz question. So this is a great way for you to access and maybe go back and ask a question and say, hey, I saw that you read Hansel and Gretel in myON. And you can just ask them, which is the main idea of this book? What did you learn? And that way, and it gives you the answer automatically for that quiz question as well. So those are just some things that I encourage you to navigate through. And again, it's user friendly. You can't break myON, and it's just, we want children to fall in love with reading. We want books to fall in their lap, and for them to have just access to books as much as possible, finding just right books. So, and that's the information that I have for today. So I'm going to just turn it over to Angela and see what other kinds of questions we have.
All right. Thank you so much, Michelle, for all of the information. I really love the fact that students are going to be able to access books and at home, because unfortunately they're not able to visit their school library or the libraries that the city libraries or county libraries, whichever one they typically go to. And if your house doesn't have, if your home is not literature rich, you don't have like a lot of books, this is just a great way. So I love myON, and I love the fact that you show them all of the features. Theodore has another question. He asked, do you have a recommendation for how long students should read on a screen before taking a break? It's a very good question.
Oh, that's a great question. I would say rule of thumb, especially with young readers, if they can read 15 to 20 minutes a day, if they may not be able to do it in one sitting, especially if they are, let's say you've got a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old at home. But ideally, what research shows is that reading 20 minutes a day really makes a huge impact in terms of students being on grade level and ready for 3rd grade, 4th grade and above, and just to be graduation ready. So we just want them to get used to reading and falling in love with reading. We don't want to torture them by saying, you've got to read an hour every single day. Because we still want reading to be fun. You kind of want them to want for more as they read. So I think that's hopefully that's a good rule of thumb. But I think 15 to 20 minutes is a great way to just get them started. And the little reader meter is super helpful for the younger ones to keep track of it. If you have older children in 6th grade and above, this reader meter looks a little bit different. It almost looks like gauges on a race car, but they can still track their progress. So the view's a little bit different. But that's a great question.
So there was a question about I'll answer that. It was a question about how they just found out about the webinar. When will we do it again so that we can tell other parents? Well, that's a great question. We're going to be, this webinar is being recorded right now as we speak. And so we're going to upload it on our webpage. If you know any families who only speak Spanish, we're doing one tomorrow at 3:30 again. Right? Is it tomorrow?
I think it's 1:30.
1:30. Okay, so
Yeah.
tomorrow at 1:30, this will be Michelle is going to be presenting the same information to our Hispanic speaking family or Spanish speaking families. So if you can let them know that as well. But both of them are going to be published, and we'll give you that information to show you. Actually, if Mercedes behind the scene, if you can type in the link in the chat bar, then that way the families can, there it is. You all can go on there. Now, you should click on that link and subscribe to the channel so that whenever a new video is uploaded, we try to do these recordings once a week. You'll be notified. So just click on that link. Thank you so much, Mercedes. Are there any other questions for Michelle? Looks like someone's typing no questions. Let's see, Ellen Smith.
You all have been wonderful, and I hope that this is the type of information that you needed. And feel free to just reach out, and we're here. You can also visit the website readonmyon.com. It's our Hillsborough County website that has a lot of additional resources for parents and for teachers, and all about our community model as well. Readonmyon.com. Thank you, Angela.
All right, you're welcome. All right, well, we want to thank everyone for being with us today. And again, reach out to us if you need anything that you need. We're here for you. We're here for the parents to help support you in your child's learning, because this is a trying time and it's a lot of information for us to navigate through. So I hope this information was useful, and thank you so much. I want to let everyone know that Michelle, she didn't have to do this. Like, she volunteered. There were a lot of questions at our last webinar we did on reading. There were a lot of questions specifically to myON, and so she was so willing to help parents do that, because our reading coaches, they were specifically talking about strategies for reading, but there were a lot of questions about myON. So I hope these questions are cleared up. But if they have any other questions, always go to that. Again, they're going to be. We have some links for directions, right, Michelle?
Yes, absolutely. There's some parent guides as well.
Okay, so we will post those parent guides on that website that we've recorded. It will be underneath the recording. If you go to the YouTube page, the YouTube channel, you'll have all the directions that she has gone over today. All right, with that, we want to thank everyone for being with us today, and y'all have a great evening.
Thank you so much. Good
Thank
night.
you, Michelle. Good night.
Bye-bye.